Would you believe me if I told you that Tom Brady is 2 games under 500 for the first time ever? Honestly, they tried to host the Ravens on Thursday night. Well, let's be fair, they did host the Ravens, and it did not go well, did it, Devin?
Yeah, it went well for the fans of Thursday Night Football. We had another combined score of almost 50 points on a Thursday, which seems like something that we've been years away from at this point. Tampa Bay's just in a really bad spot. I don't know how they're going to get out of this. The offense is kind of coming together a little bit, but the offensive line troubles continue to be a huge problem for this Tampa Bay unit. Brady is as old as he's ever been, and it's kind of showing. Granted,
Yeah,
I say that with the grain of salt. He threw for 325 yards and a touchdown, but the efficiency that we came so accustomed to seeing out of this Buccaneers unit is it's been sapped. I don't know where it's gone, and that's the biggest problem thus far. The rushing attack is terrible. You have 13 carries combined between your running backs for less than 50 yards. That can't happen on any NFL game, regardless of who you're playing. It's just for this team, they can't control the game in the way that they've been able to in the past. And it'd be one thing if their defense was as formidable as it was 2 years ago, but the defense isn't even the same. It's genuinely like Pandora's box has been opened. Injuries are getting to them, age is getting to them, coaching is getting to them. It's the perfect storm, for lack of better terms.
is it fair to say that some of the efficiency went out the door with Rob Gronkowski?
I think it went out the door with Bruce Arians, to be honest. I know Leftwich was the
That's fair.
coordinator for the entirety of the Brady offense, but at the same time, Bruce Arians commands respect in a way that I don't think Leftwich currently has in the NFL. Bruce Arians was a veteran coach who earned his keep through places like Indianapolis, Arizona, and Tampa Bay, for the lack of better terms. He was a guy that earned his keep in the NFL in a way that I really respect, and Leftwich should be able to do the same, but I just think the nuance and experience of Arians was crucial to this team. And I was a little skittish coming into the year with Arians leaving in the offseason. Because even last year, there was kind of some heads butting between Brady and Arians and some of the other players. Antonio
Mhm.
Brown and Arians got into the huge blow up in the final week of the season. And AB hasn't seen a field since. And the Bucs haven't seen the field in the way that they saw pre-AB leaving. Like, this team just feels a little empty. And yes,
Well,
they've
yeah, you brought in Julio Jones and he's barely played, for the past 3 years. Him and Mike Evans hooked up on some good deep balls, but at the same time, they looked like on different pages multiple times. Chris Godwin really wasn't involved in the second half. He missed a wide open, not a wide open, but he failed to lead out Kyle Rudolph properly for a touchdown. He had a K. Dotton touchdown pulled back. Just everything that could have gone wrong, and Brady's missing throws that we're used to him seeing. And I think the biggest thing is that we've been so used to Tom Brady winning for 20 years. When he starts losing, something's wrong. Like he's what, 43,
he's
44?
45. He's
He's
45.
45 at this point. So at some point, we've all said it for the past 10 years at Tom Brady of Father Time will get to somebody eventually. And Tom Brady's still chucking the ball in the top 5 in passing yards right now, but he's not winning games. And really that's what matters the most. And we're not even going to get into the personal life stuff, and it's what we
It
see on
doesn't
the
matter.
field.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
personal life stuff is personal life. Brady just Max Kellerman called his shot, I believe, like 5-6 years ago, and it's genuinely interesting to see how it's going to work out. It's tough. Like, every quarterback has the seminal moment where it basically tells you, hey, like, the best days are behind you. Like, to quote Ed Helms from The Office, I wish there was a way to know you were in the good old days whenever you were still in them. And
Yeah.
I think, regardless of how bad Brady is this year, we have to apply it to the proper context. Brady at his worst is still better than almost half of the quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, he's not
Right.
the worst guy leading an offense right now. He's just not what he was 2 years ago, and that is the biggest problem. The Bucs were a team ready-made for a starting quarterback, two-star quarterback, to take them to the next level. A guy like a Jameis had the capacity to lead them to like a 500 record due to just the overall propensity of the offense to score points. Brady manages games in a way that nobody else has been able to. Regardless of how talented you think he is been able to control football games from the start. And whether it be due to the lack of the offensive line, the change in head coaching, the loss of key weapons, and a defense that just isn't as stacked as it was in previous years, managing these games is becoming more and more difficult. And a big thing with this game is the defense hemorrhaged in the second half. Baltimore put up 24 points in the second half. And if I'm correct, they didn't have Mark Andrews for the better part of the second half. And
Yeah, they
that's
lost him
the
pretty
thing
early.
that's the thing
Also,
that's
Sean
super
Bateman,
alarming
too.
to me. That's the super alarming part to me. I get Lamar Jackson is one of the most dynamic players in football, but to lose to Lamar Jackson and this treasure trove of spare parts, it's a little alarming. And if I'm correct, they played in Tampa this week. Lamar went into Tampa Bay, played a hell of a game. Devin Duvernay got a rushing touchdown. They were able to win this game by playing Ravens football and not allowing the Broncos to make them morph to their play style.
Well,
Because,
and the thing is, guys stepped up when they needed to. Isaiah Likely filled in
yep,
for Mark Andrews, 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. And then Demarcus Robinson, 6 receptions for 64 yards.
Devin Duvernay, 4 for 31. Even James Prochet, Kenyon Drake. While they do not have the star talent on the perimeter or through their running back room currently, there's a lot of decent to very good talent that the Ravens have at their disposal. It sucks that Bateman got hurt again. It sucks that Andrews had to miss this game. But Lamar's proving the worth that he genuinely has to a team like this, because the best quarterbacks in the league produce regardless of the talent around them, a la a Tom Brady for a stretch of those years in New England, where Deion Branch was his number one receiver and he had a just carousel of running backs. Like, that's what differentiates the best from the best. Because
Yeah.
a lot of quarterbacks can put up numbers with Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. Granted, Peyton did it better than damn near anybody else ever could have, but that's the point. It's the differences between Joe Burrows and Justin Herberts. They're very good players, but weapons genuinely matter. And the guys that can produce without those top tier weapons, they just have an intangible factor to me that matters. And Lamar's proving it week in and week out this year, even in his down weeks. He's keeping the team in games. And for not some of it's not even Lamar's fault. John Harbaugh gets cute in some of these games. He doesn't take points. He goes for the 2-point conversion. And I understand he's earned that. He's earned the ability to puff his chest out and say, yeah, I'm going to do this. He's been there for a decade plus, Super Bowl champion. Losing seasons, few and far between. So it's great to see Lamar win a game like this whenever there's so much scrutiny going towards him, especially coming into this offseason where he didn't sign the extension, where he doesn't want to be franchise tagged. He's earning every penny he should see this offseason. And I'm just more worried about Tampa Bay than I am about Baltimore moving forward, because at 5-3, Baltimore's in a pole position to win their division, especially with Jamar Chase going down with the hip. I think they are as good as I expected them to be. And it's surprising because of how bad the secondary was to start the year. They're starting to tighten up.
Yeah. Broncos country. Let's high knee at 50,000 feet.
Ooh.
We picked the Jags to win this game, but the Broncos pulled it out. Big mistakes. I'm not going to get on Doug Peterson for this one. He can no longer use James Robinson. He has to give Travis Etienne the ball, and Travis Etienne had 24 carries for 156 yards and a touchdown, and also got in 3 receptions for 6 yards. That's not too much, but the catches are still worth something. They just made big mistakes at the wrong time. They had a goal line interception. They had some turnovers, and the Broncos were just able to capitalize at the right time and push down at the right time. I think Greg Dulcich basically led an entire drive all the way down. Russell Wilson went 18 for 30, 252, a touchdown and a pick. Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon also got touchdowns each. But Trevor Lawrence only threw for 131 yards. He threw 2 picks. Like, those are the things that matter the most. And you were on Tyler's show earlier. You know, shout out to Tyler for letting Devin jump on the show earlier for fantasy. You were talking about the concern level of Trevor Lawrence and how it's still fairly low right now. And granted, they are more fantasy driven. You can kind of look at it on both sides here. A lot of people were still pretty, low on the concern side for Trevor Lawrence. And we all know he's going to be the starter next year, like we all said. But at what point do we need to see him take the next step? Because a lot of people talk about these guys who have made their jumps because they've gotten their guy. I don't think Christian Kirk or Marvin Jones or Zay Jones is the guy for Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne is his guy now. But at what point does he need really somebody who can get consistent separation? Their defense is holding up pretty okay. They haven't given up a shit ton of points. They haven't got really blown out all season. They've played good games across the board. But with Trevor Lawrence throwing for only 133 yards, what does he need to do to take that next step and get the Jaguars to the next step where they need to be? Because they'll probably have another early pick. And at that point, I don't think there's any top wide receivers that are going to be in the top 10 of the draft next year. So I think you're looking at a defensive piece because you're not going to go quarterback.
Well, I think there's a lot of intriguing options coming out of this year's draft for wide receiver. We'll get into those, obviously, the season progresses. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be one of the top receivers taken next year and probably one of the first off the board.
Ineligible.
I don't know. He's ineligible? He can't be drafted this year.
He's a freshman, I believe.
Oh, so he played last year, so he's a sophomore. That is tough. Never mind.
But yeah, he's ineligible for the next draft.
That hurts my heart. There are a handful of receivers that I think are going to be very talented, but I do think this Jaguars unit could definitely use some help at the on the defensive end. I think the thing about evaluating talent at quarterback, especially over the last 10 years, it's very easy to get into this habit of you went first, you have to produce, because you have some of these guys like a Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, even we've seen Josh Allen, guys that aren't taken in the top 5 at quarterback coming in and producing at exorbitant levels from rip. Justin Herbert was outside of the top 5. And yes, Joe Burrow was the first overall pick, but Joe Burrow, I just think we have to temper expectations a bit because LSU was not this established dominant program. I understand LSU in the grand scheme of the context. Joe Burrow transferred from Ohio State, had elite talent around him, and broke almost every single record that college football had seen for a quarterback. But at the same time, LSU wasn't Alabama. LSU was not Clemson. And these factories of schools that are producing NFL talent draft after draft after draft after draft, you have to temper the expectations for the quarterbacks that are going from these great programs with established cultures and insane treasure troves of talent around them and going into these situations where it's ground zero and they're the best player in the building at all times. So I even though the Jaguars lost this game, technically they won. The Broncos don't own their first round pick. The Jaguars do. They have hopefully their franchise quarterback, and they figured out that their running back is their guy, for lack of better terms. You and I have been screaming from the rooftops that Travis Etienne is the best back in Jacksonville, and they finally came to. And Etienne came to in a big way.
I'm gonna make a jump real quick because Divine earlier in the season said we were too low on the Seahawks, and Pete Carroll. And you got us, brother. You got us. We'll get to the Seahawks down the line because they were a late game. They're technically late on our slate, but just to touch on that real quick, they're 5-3, and I cannot discredit what Geno Smith and Pete Carroll are doing right now.
Broncos can't fly. Seahawks can. I don't understand where my mind was. Divine comedy. So kudos to Pete Carroll. All the juicy fruit in the world for that man. But back to the Jags. Yeah, I don't think it's that bad of a loss for them. The thing that we mentioned about the Jaguars before the season even started was this is a team that has the capacity to win 6 or 7 games. Will it happen? Maybe, maybe not. I think they finished their season with 5-6 wins, and they're going to play teams extremely tough. This is a team that had basically built from ground zero. They got rid of Calais Campbell. They got rid of Yannick Ngakoue, CJ Henderson, Jalen Ramsey, everything that made this defensive unit great. Even the offensive pieces are gone too. Leonard Fournette was released. This is a team that over the last 3 years is completely new. And to Divine Comedy's point, is Lawrence a lemon, though? I'm not going to judge that quickly. This is effectively, I know he played a full season last year. I'm counting this as his rookie season just because the Urban Meyer experiment failed in every way imaginable.
I think the biggest thing too is with Urban Meyer, you had one of the worst coaching experiences of your entire life. I think Doug Peterson is a good coach, and I think if he can stay there for 3 to 4 years, Trevor can take a next step. Maybe not like a Josh Allen-esque step. I think that's an anomaly, an outlier that we may never see again, because Josh Allen took insane steps with Brian Dable and Sean McDermott. Compared to his contemporaries, Trevor Lawrence is still looking like the best quarterback in his class. Justin Fields is starting to do a lot better with a whole lot less right now, so I think he's getting there. But Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. Trey Lance is a little unfair. We haven't seen Trey Lance really too much. But Zach Wilson has now looked exposed without Breece Hall. Mac Jones has really taken a step back from what he's doing. So I don't know. I just think the more he's able to stay with the same coaching staff, he will get better. I just don't know. I don't know how big the step is going to be. And that's going to be the biggest question is I think he could take a step forward, but how big is the step going to be?
That's the biggest thing. I think we just need to kind of change the mirror that we're looking into whenever it comes to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was drafted first overall, but a lot of the discourse around Trevor Lawrence coming out of Clemson was akin to being the next Andrew Luck, and I think that undersells who Andrew Luck truly was as a player. Lawrence is top 10 in passing yards. He's been sacked 12 times. Biggest gripe with him right now is just turning the ball over. That 5 turnover game is a big eyesore on his resume for this year. But quarterbacks don't translate year 1, year 2 as often as we really think they do. Tua's in year 3. Herbert and Burrow were anomalies their first years. Mahomes sat his entire first year, and a guy like Aaron Rodgers, he didn't play for his first 2-3 years in the league. Josh Allen, albeit before Brady left that division, was a passable quarterback. Josh Allen wasn't an instant translation. Yes, comparing Lawrence to Kyler Murray in terms of flat-out production at the gate, Kyler Murray is leaps and bounds better than what Trevor Lawrence has been. But then again, Kyler Murray is a freak athlete. You can't compare him to
other first-round picks because he is not anywhere near his contemporaries of first overall picks right now. It's not even close.
It's more so looking at just how Trevor is performing in relation to the quarterbacks in front of him today. I think he's better than half the other quarterbacks in the league, just based upon intangibles and stats. And then obviously he's not in that top tier, but I think he's in a tier above everybody else he was drafted around, and even all the quarterbacks that were drafted this previous draft. So there's far worse places to be than having Trevor Lawrence in year 2.
Yeah.
But it could get worse. I expect it to get better.
Before we go to the next game, our Amari Cooper stock now has to score 1 extra point because he threw an interception.
Amari threw an interception.
Amari Cooper threw an interception. So now we're at -1 point for Amari Cooper.
He's dropping in my dynasty quarterback rankings as we speak.
We're cursed. That league is cursed, and it's not particularly close. Speaking of not cursed, the Lions are cursed. But Tua Tagovailoa is not. 29 for 36, 382 yards, 3 touchdowns. Once again, referencing the Tyler show when you guys were talking about Tua Tagovailoa, he has the weapons that work out perfectly for his makeup.
Yeah,
Tua is not going to blow you away with his arm strength, but he is going to hit you accurately in stride well every time. Sometimes he throws what we call suicide balls, but when you throw them to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, it usually doesn't matter because they're faster than everyone else. And that's just what they're going to do. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are now the first duo, like highest yards in history through 8 games. Tyreek Hill had 12 receptions.
He's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's single season receiving record at this point.
Granted, 1 more game, 188 yards. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he broke it. He broke it in 16 games the way he's playing.
Yeah.
But Jalen Waddle, 8 for 106 and 2 touchdowns, and then everyone else was kind of non-existent after that. Raheem Mostert had 14 catches, but this team doesn't need to run. They really can just tear up the game. And on the other side, you got the Lions, who have the worst defense in the league. And the question to me is that the Lions are going to be in the top 5 of picks.
Yeah.
They're getting a quarterback, right?
It depends if they can get a guy like Will Anderson to drop. Because if they have the first overall pick, I think you go defense. That's just the way I see it. They already invested so much in the offensive line. They have weapons currently. If you're 32nd in the league in defense, I don't see how you don't draft a defender with your first round pick in a draft like this. Because yes, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are both incredibly well-rounded prospects in terms of the quarterback position. There is some baggage with either of those guys due to the fact that they are Ohio State and Alabama quarterbacks. I know that they have stigmas around, especially CJ Stroud with the track record of Ohio State as a school and the quarterbacks they produce at the NFL level. I think that's a little bit too much to swallow in my eyes. If you're going to draft the guy, draft them because you believe in the talent, not in the school. But I think it could be a problem whenever you're picking in the top 5 and you have the Detroit Lions, who have a guy in Jared Goff, who I don't think is losing them games weekly. I think if you provide them with a better defense, they could be 3-4 at this point. Or
100%. They could
like
have beaten the Eagles. They could have beaten the Seahawks. They could have beaten the Dolphins. They were up on the Dolphins early.
Exactly. This is a team that the offense is not the issue. They're scoring almost 25 to 30 points a game. I think they go after defensive talent that's going to be difference makers in this draft. Hopefully the next 2 drafts. They have Jared Goff on big money until I believe 2026 or until they have an out, which I don't think the out comes until 2 years from now anyways. So I've said this numerous times. There are far worse players to have at quarterback than Jared Goff. Because if they didn't have the offensive line, get a better guy. Because whenever Jared Goff is pressured, he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Whenever he's protected, he's shown it in LA and he shows it in glimpses in Detroit. He can play NFL football. He was the first overall pick for a multitude of reasons, but I don't think drafting a quarterback in this year's draft is going to fix their problems. Because you can go fucking 2-7, 2-15 every year with any quarterback and a defense that is this bad, because the offense is cool. The offense is good. I think they're better off taking defense in the first round, getting a skill guy in the second round. And they still haven't seen Jameson Williams on this offense. Adding more to an offense that's already this set, unless it's another receiver, do they really need it once we see Jameson Williams? St. Brown has hit. Hawkinson has hit. Swift, even though he can't stay on the field, has hit. The offensive line is set. They are young. I just think you build for the now, because if they're going to continue to try and get the next great quarterback before finishing what their defense can be, their ceiling is going to be far lower than it ever should have been.
For the Dolphins, I think they'll be just fine moving forward. Now that they got Tua back, they are a little beat up in the secondary, and it showed a little bit here, but they shut out the Lions in the second half. They got where they needed to go. Their offense is dynamic and should be putting up these amount of points almost every game.
Yeah, if Tua's healthy. Well, the thing is, for as much flack as I can give Joe Burrow for calling him elite in terms of his talent, Tua's having what Burrow had last year. You give a talented arm weapons, they're going to produce. And I thought Higgins Chase was one of the best wide receiver duos I'd seen in a long time. I think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is the best wide receiver duo in the league. And I don't think it's close. I think talent-wise, those 2 dudes stacked up against anybody else, you give those 2 to any quarterback in the league, the numbers are going through the roof. Just because not only is Tyreek Hill one of the most dynamic players in terms of making people miss, and Jalen Waddle is one of the more elusive players in the league, they're 2 of the fastest receivers in football. They are a cheat code. And there's a reason why Gesicki can have 38 yards and a touchdown, or Sherfield is getting open, or Raheem Mostert can average 5 yards a carry. It's not just the offensive line. It's Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle stretching the defenses as thin as humanly possible.
Yeah. The tweet, the game that got me featured on Freezing Cold Takes.
Yeah, I should turn my heater on. That's how cold the take was. I woke up from my nap and Austin was like, "Hey, dude, check this shit out." I was like, fuck.
Dude. PJ Walker throws, a 67-yard touchdown to DJ Moore. DJ Moore takes his helmet off, gets a 15-yard penalty. Eddie Pinheiro misses the point after. They go into overtime. Falcons receive the ball, throw a pick. CJ Henderson gets nearly down to the 30, to the 20 even. And Eddie Pinheiro misses a 33-yard field goal, and the Atlanta Falcons go on to win. And before the penalty, I tweeted out that the Carolina Panthers now lead the NFC South. Christian McCaffrey was holding the team back, and DJ Moore is insane. It still stands that DJ Moore is insane, but that's about it. That is literally it from that tweet that's left. Marcus Mariota threw the ball, something we're not used to in the Arthur Smith era. 28 times. That's 28 times more than it felt like last week. PJ Walker, 19 for 36, 317, a touchdown, a pick. Dante Foreman, 26 carries for 118 yards and 3 touchdowns. But that just wasn't enough because Eddie Pinheiro said so.
I understand the discourse around people saying you can't blame DJ Moore. Know the rule book, man. Like, to blame Pinheiro for losing the game, PJ Walker had a pedestrian outing, for lack of better terms. You look at the stats or just look at their team. Pinheiro hit 2 of his 3 field goals and he missed an extra point. Pinheiro misses all 3 of his field goals. This isn't a talking point. He's just cut from the team the next day. Sucks for them to lose that way. It's a very Carolina Panthers way to lose a football game. They're not the most disciplined team in the world. Matt Rule still lives in their dreams. 2-6 without a paddle. But Phillip Walker threw for a bunch of empty yards and got probably throw of the year to DJ Moore on the final play of the game. What should have been the final play of the game? Know the rules, know the situation. I get DJ Moore has every right to be excited. Keep the helmet on. Terry McLaurin took his helmet off after that huge reception that brought them down to the 1 against the Colts, and they called timeout. He took his helmet off. You can totally do that, but play within the rules of the game. I know it's boring, and I know it's not like the flashy thing to say, but the Panthers beat the Panthers here, and there's nothing to say or do about that. You could blame the kicker, sure, but you set him back 15 more yards. So I don't know. Imagine the play where DJ Moore makes that touchdown. If he got set back 15 yards on that play, he's nowhere near the end zone. It's apples and oranges. You can't have it every week. And it's the little things that cost teams huge spots. And the Atlanta Falcons are in pole position of the division now. And with the way the rest of the division's playing, I don't know what's going to happen. But shout out Mariota for 3 touchdowns. Kyle Pitts, sorry I benched you.
Right? Seriously. Wow, they won a game when they threw to Kyle Pitts and Drake London. That's crazy how that works. It's weird. You want to talk about being in a pole position and the rest of the division playing bad? The Minnesota Vikings are 6-1. Everyone else in their division has 5 losses. The Minnesota Vikings are in a damn good spot. Kyler Murray actually played well on release weekend of Modern Warfare 2. But he probably got banned for using aimbot in the campaign or something. So it happens to the best of us.
Rondale Moore, dude.
7 for 92 and a touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins, 12 receptions, 159 yards and a touchdown. Zach Ertz had a touchdown. It's the 2 picks that mattered the most for Kyler Murray. One was underthrown, and the other one was just not on the same page with Zach Ertz at all. They probably don't play Call of Duty together, so it happens. I bet you that's where they talk about most of their plays, too, in the COD lobby. But Kirk Cousins, dual threat, 4 carries for 22 yards and a touchdown. Alexander Mattison ran in a touchdown. Dalvin Cook ran in a touchdown. Your favorite player, Johnny Munt, got a reception touchdown, while Justin Jefferson went 6 for 98. Vikings just all around are playing well. The defense obviously didn't do too great, gave up 26 points, but Vikings scored 34, and that's all that really matters. What do you think?
This is why you bring in Kevin O'Connell. You had Mike Zimmer for the better part of half a decade, and he was defensive-minded, and your defense played like shit. At least with Kevin O'Connell, the offense can outplay what the defense fails to do on a weekly basis. Feel bad for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals sliding to 3-5, albeit their division sucks right now as well. They're still within earshot of making a push to make the playoffs at 3-5. The Vikings are going to win this division, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think regardless of how well Green Bay does, making up 4 games this late into the season is an improbability. It would be the most Vikings thing in the world to watch a team in the NFC North come back on them and win this division, but the Vikings are playing with house money at this point. They're healthier than they've been in a long time. All it took was Dalvin Cook to change his number for this team to realize their full potential.
True.
Kirk Cousins is not turning the ball over. Justin Jefferson isn't throwing his hands in the air every week, screaming at Kirk to get the damn ball out. And even with a porous defense, at times, they still have the talent on this unit to be able to hold teams. Patrick Peterson had a big pick against Kyler Murray. You've got big names like Zadarius Smith, Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith. You've got players there, and they're able to make impacts regardless of what the outcome does tell you on the final score. The Cardinals are not a bad offense. For the Vikings to allow 26 points to this unit, the Cardinals' record is worse than what their offense dictates. Their defense for the Arizona Cardinals is terrible. But yeah, the Vikings are just able to keep themselves in games. They're honest to who they are, and they're just putting up points with the best of them. And they're going to have to face a really, really stout defense to kind of slow them down. They better be keen on teams like Philadelphia and Dallas, because those are the types of defenses that will give them a lot of trouble. Because I don't think they've seen a truly stellar defense in the run so far. Green Bay has had issues throughout the year. Arizona's defense has been Swiss cheese since last year. So it's good of them to win these games now, because whenever the schedule is going to get tighter and the weeks continue to pile on, they are going to need to capitalize every single week.
Yeah, and fire Cliff Kingsbury. Just fire him already. They're 3-5, so he didn't start out 7-0 or 8-0 like he normally does. So just fire Cliff Kingsbury. Obviously, whatever match. Cliff Kingsbury. What would you do for a Cliff Kingsbury bar? I don't know where I'm going with that, but just fire Cliff Kingsbury. Okay. Boy, am I glad we won this game. Boy, good Lord Almighty. Let me tell you something. I'm going to give a shout out to Justin Fields for playing some damn good ball. 7 for 23, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 8 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown. Khalil Herbert, 16 carries for 99 yards and a touchdown. The Bears played good. The Dallas defense did not hold them very well, and that was starting to concern me a little bit, because I was ready to lose like 29-27 and have it be Dak's fault. I was ready for it. But you had Dak Prescott light him up early, kind of slowed down in the second half because Tony Pollard kind of took over. Dak Prescott, 21 for 27, 252 touchdowns and an interception. Tony Pollard, 14 carries, 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm just going to say it. Like, I love Zeke to death, but if this is the numbers, I get we're facing one of the worst rush defenses in the league this week. But if Tony Pollard is going to average 9 yards a carry and put up 3 touchdowns every game, I will never give Zeke the ball ever again. He can just block for the rest of his days. The problem is Jerry Jones is not going to do that because he's committed so much money to his 5th overall pick. It's just not going to happen. Like, I love the dual-headed backfields. You got Chubb and Hunt. You had ETN and J-Rob for a short time.
You hated that tandem. You can't sit here and say you love that tandem.
I'm saying I hated it for fantasy, but overall for a team,
you understand
fantasy, I hated it. Yeah. AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones. I understand this tandem that you put in the backfield, but at this point, Tony Pollard just hits the holes faster, cuts faster, does everything faster. And Zeke was kind of the bowl you over type of guy, but he's not really that type of guy anymore. He's not really bowling guys over. He's looked better this year for sure than he has in previous years, and I think this rest on Sunday and a bye coming up this week is going to work wonderful for him. And I think he'll look good the week after when we play Green Bay. But I think the ball should predominantly go to Tony Pollard against Green Bay, and he'll tear their asses up. But we put up 49 points, so we were willing to beat anybody that week. So the defense took the week off, which was okay this time, but it obviously needs to be better. But I will give a shout out to Chicago for playing well over their past 2 games against New England and Dallas, 2 pretty good defenses.
Yeah. Tony Pollard so far this season has put up 506 rushing yards. Zeke has 443. He's right behind Raheem Mostert and right ahead of Justin Fields in terms of overall rushing production. Pollard sits between CMC and Jeff Wilson. Pollard has about 30 less carries than Zeke at this point for the season. Zeke is not going to be erased from this offense, but for the Cowboys' most efficient offense, I think Pollard will continue to see more and more usage. I think the time is now. Zeke is great near the goal line. Zeke is a really fun back to just run between tackles whenever you need it. But in terms of keeping the offense on the field, Tony Pollard makes far more sense.
And the thing is, dude, Tony Pollard's playing for a bag.
Yep.
I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep him, but he's playing for a
You're
bag
not.
now.
You're not going to keep him. After a season like this, I think there's plenty of teams that are willing to throw money at this guy. Shout out the Bears. Shout out Matt Eberflus. He continues to prove that he's one of the best hires of this offseason, as much as I talked in the offseason. He's better than Hackett. He's better than McDaniels. I think he's better than Peterson thus far. He's taken a very, very bad team and led them to 3 wins so far. And he put up 29 points in the best defense in football. So if you guys did lose this, I would have given you shit forever, because 7 touchdowns and a loss doesn't happen. But
yeah, seriously.
Yeah, there was never doubt in this game. The Bears are playing their hearts out, but Dallas, on their best day, is one of the better teams in the NFC currently.
They just effortlessly push the ball down their throats. And
Speaking of effortlessly,
the Raiders did not put up any effort whatsoever.
Not
it was
any.
It was Alvin Kamara 24, Raiders 0. Raiders never made it past the 50 until 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
I love Alvin Kamara. Taysom Hill had 60 yards. This is the skew you would usually expect. You expect Taysom Hill with a rushing touchdown, and Kamara had 18 carries to Taysom Hill's 10. Kamara had a touchdown. Taysom Hill averaged 6 yards a carry. Taysom Hill is not better than Alvin Kamara. I don't care what anybody says. The Raiders suck. Devontae Adams had 1 reception for 3 yards.
He had a bad drop too, though.
Hunter Renfrow had 1 reception for 6 yards. This Mac Hollins shit is getting old. If I were the Raiders front office, I would look at Josh McDaniels and I would tell him, if Devontae Adams has another 1 reception game this season, you're fired. Because they traded the farm for this guy. And there is no farm in the NFL. It's all draft picks. They made him the highest paid wide receiver prior to Tyreek Hill getting traded. They moved any semblance of chances of having first-round picks. They made a move like the Rams would have made 2 years ago for a team that hasn't seen the playoffs since Derek Carr had a full ACL. So I'm not saying I told you so. The defense sucks. The offense isn't good. Derek Carr isn't that guy right now. 101 yards and a pick. Josh Jacobs he had a day where he came back down to earth. It's tough to see. You hate to see it. But you did it to yourself. It's shitty and it sucks, but it's the Raiders. I didn't like Devontae Adams to this team. I didn't like the way they drafted. I don't think investing first-round picks year after year and cutting them or not picking up fifth-year options is conducive to winning football. And they just don't make good decisions in terms of personnel. Yeah. I did not like Rich Bisaccia. I thought he probably earned another year as the head coach after beating the Chargers and making the playoffs. That was just me. To blame him for the playoff loss, I felt was a bit asinine. I hated the Josh
would you even
McDaniels
call
hiring.
Josh McDaniels a good coordinator at this point? Or do you think it was all Bill Belichick?
I think McDaniels as a coordinator is fine. I don't think McDaniels as a head coach is great. McDaniels is not a motivator of people. Head coaches are motivators. As a head coach, you can employ a staff. And head coaches are good for being the figurehead. Their head is on the pike every week, and they motivate the players. They gain the respect of the players, and they put the players in positions, because the head coach's job is not to run the offense. They can implement an offense that the coordinator will run, but the head coach is so much more than just the X's and O's. They are they bear the shield of the team, of the players. They're their first defenders. And so I've never had faith in McDaniels. He failed in Denver. He went back to New England. And like I've told you before, I'd much rather take a guy that produced on NFL levels with less than stellar talent as a coordinator, as opposed to guys that have been gifted the greatest players to ever touch the field as a coordinator, a la Adam Gase with Peyton Manning, a la Josh McDaniels with Tom Brady, a la Nathaniel Hackett with Aaron Rodgers. Because the problem is, whenever you have less than stellar quarterback play and less than because Hackett seems to be absolutely insane to me. It proves to me how good Aaron Rodgers has been over the last half decade and how bad Russ is outside of the Pete Carroll system. But that's the point. You can't judge somebody fully based upon having such great talent, because I think coordination and coaching is so much more. It's why Doug Peterson got so many points out of me whenever the scheme worked with Nick Foles. It's why I wasn't super sold on Zach Taylor after his miracle year last year. There's a reason why Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, even Bruce Arians last year. There's a reason why the top head coaches in football are the top head coaches, and it's more than just their play calling. It's more than just their offenses. It's the ability to get respect from the locker room and to command that locker room, because Hackett's already lost the locker room. I think McDaniel's never had the locker room. I think first and foremost, it's the reason why Dan Campbell still has a job. You have to be a leader of men first. That's why Mike McDaniel is translating so well. Yes, he was the run game coordinator and he was a brilliant mind in SF, but the players fucking like him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not likable and you can't win games, there's not a track record that shows me you're gonna last long.
Yeah. Okay. I really don't have a ton to say about this.
AJ Brown
pretty much is the story here. 6 catches for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts 19 for 28, 285 and 4 touchdowns. Gardner Minshew even came in about, pretty sure he came in like the fourth quarter for the most part after it was blown out. Kenny Pickett threw the ball 38 times, but only for 191 yards and a pick. The running game was non-existent. Once again, Najee Harris, 8 carries for 32 yards. Chase Claypool passed for a touchdown, so that
to
pretty
Derek
much tells
Watt,
you all
Chargers legend.
To Derek Watt. The Steelers are 2-6. This is pretty much what we expected with Mitch Trubisky, the quarterback. There's just not a whole lot going on here. The Eagles are 7-0. They move on to destroy the Texans on Thursday, and that's kind of all I got. It's 2 teams going the exact opposite direction.
Nick Sirianni has these dudes playing out of their ass.
I think Nick Sirianni, real quick, sorry,
good,
has done some good maturing as a head coach, because I saw his speech about the we want Dallas shirts, and he said, no, fuck that. It's going to be about us. It's about, and that's what it is. He got caught up. He got, and we all get caught up, and he got a little excited to play a, division rival, the Cowboys, who are, the media's number 1 team all the time. They are the team to beat in the division, regardless of how, well they play, because just how much attention they get. And I think Nick Sirianni is doing a really good job.
Yeah, 100%. As a Chargers fan, I was pissed last year whenever Sirianni was getting all this praise for having a 9-8 season and making the playoffs. Well, the Chargers barely missed the playoffs at 9-8 with their rookie head coach. Sirianni has answered every question I had about him in this season. He was a rookie head coach last year, and he took a team and overachieved in a way that I didn't expect the Eagles to do. Obviously, Jalen Hurts has taken that next step, and they've given him weapons that he did not have previously. AJ Brown, comparatively to Jalen Reagor, is like comparing the Mona Lisa to my finger paintings in the 5th grade or the 1st grade, for lack of better grades. But hear me out. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC, and they could basically be the best team in football. Dallas is doing some great things, but what the Eagles have done so far this season has been complete dominance, aside from a half of Cooper Rush playing garbage time football to make a game of it. For me, though, I wish they would have taken a loss to this point, because I just don't know when their first loss comes. And if they come out of the regular season undefeated, I am terrified for whoever they're playing in the playoffs, because there's going to be good teams in the playoffs, especially in the NFC. Maybe not in that first round, but once they hit the NFC Championship or even the divisional, they're going to have to play somebody that is prepared to face the Eagles, because the Eagles are going to have issues and flaws, but if they don't lose, they're not going to have to fully exacerbate those issues. Because the only way to solve a problem is to recognize it exists. And if you're winning every single game, it's a lot harder to look in the mirror and try and figure out what your fatal flaw is. But regardless, they are the top team in the NFL. They are operating on a level that is just higher than everybody else. Pittsburgh didn't have a shot. Tomlin's going to have his first losing season. Whoop-de-fucking-do. He's been there for like 15 years. It's a modern marvel that he hasn't had a losing season to this point. Pickett might be the guy. I'm not sold on it. They just have to invest in offensive line for the next 4 or 5 years, because if they don't, they're never going to find the guy.
Speaking of not finding the guy, Zach Wilson does not look great without Breece Hall. His stats look good. He missed half his passes. He went 21 for 41, or 20 for 41, 355 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. The thing I saw biggest out of this game, and sorry, I'm losing my voice. I've been run down this weekend. Zach Wilson has very good escapability. He has very good legs on him, but his decision making has been extremely poor. A lot of his picks, almost all of them, overthrows, underthrows, whatever. It's him throwing on the run while trying to escape. It's trying to make too much happen, and it's kind of what we saw with Carson Wentz later on after his MVP season. Carson Wentz was good at escaping, but then bad things would happen when he would try to make a play out of nothing. And this is what I see out of Zach Wilson. And I don't know what Zach Wilson can do now. I don't know if Elijah Moore is going to get traded, but he doesn't throw to Elijah Moore anyway, so what does it matter? He was without Corey Davis. I don't even think the running game really got going. Michael Carter, 7 carries for 26 yards. James Robinson, 5 carries for 17 yards. Ty Johnson, 2 for 6. And Zach Wilson had 1 carry. Garrett Wilson had 6 for 115. Tyler Conklin caught 2 touchdowns. That's great. But they just didn't do it. They got going a little too late against this defense. They scored 13 in the third. Or 7. They scored a touchdown in the fourth. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong score. But they scored a touchdown in the fourth to make it close, but they just couldn't get that onside kick to make it matter. They were moving the ball, but the turnover game is what matters the most. Bill Belichick continues his dominance over the Jets. Zach Wilson, for me, is still the starter going forward for the rest of the season. It's not particularly close. They're not going to have a high draft pick. They already have 5 wins. I think they can get out a couple more wins. I think they're going to get smacked around by Buffalo. But I think they still have another couple of wins. But I really don't know what happens from here because, yes, Breece Hall can come back next year and make Zach Wilson look good. But at some point, you kind of just need a good quarterback.
The Cinderella story is over for the New York Jets. The carriage is turned back into a pumpkin. The Jets drafted insanely well over the last 2 years. Elijah Vera Tucker going down for the season hurts. Losing Breece Hall for the season is the killing blow to this team. The only reason they were able to be so dynamic offensively was because of a guy like Breece Hall. He's a true game breaker, and he literally broke the game against the Broncos before he broke himself. Zach Wilson sucks. Yeah, I'm speaking from privilege as a Chargers fan. Zach Wilson is not the guy. I've been low on him since he was coming out of college. The fact that he went 2nd overall blew my fucking mind. Whenever you had a guy like in Justin Fields, regardless of where he went to school, Zach Wilson was playing terrible competition at BYU in effectively like a COVID-shortened season. The schedule was super soft. His line was one of the best in the country, and he was able to just sit in a clean pocket and move around a little bit and make stellar throws because that's what he was attributed. But the pedigree was never there. He's undersized. He's 6'2", but I don't believe it. He looks like he's 6 foot on camera. His offensive line is huge. You could give him prime Randy Moss. He'd probably still throw it to Garrett Wilson. It's
true.
It's not proper roster building. I don't get taking Zach Wilson at 2. I get taking a Trey Lance because you've seen it with Carson Wentz. Whenever Carson Wentz was fully healthy before the knee injury, he was a transcendent talent, for lack of better terms. But Zach Wilson has never been it for me. He's been given the term by myself, and I'm sure many others, Mormon Manziel, because he screams Johnny Manziel to me. He may be a bit more talented. His head may be a little straighter than Johnny's ever was, but they rely upon that same escapability trying to make electric plays, which worked. And I think Manziel had a tougher competition out in the SEC, which makes it more impressive. And Manziel had the Heisman. I think if Manziel had the head that Zach Wilson has, Manziel might have translated better. But then again, Cleveland's a cesspool. But Zach Wilson was failed from the start, in my opinion. Yeah. He just didn't face the talent that he needed to prepare him for what the NFL is going to show him. And we see it week after week whenever he's constantly sabotaging games for the New York Jets. This is a game they should have won, but 3 turnovers is insurmountable whenever you're going against Bill Belichick. Yeah. And a big thing for the Patriots, Mac Jones, he's the quarterback. You invested a first-round draft pick. He fell to you. Zappy is fun. Zappy is cool. But cool it with the Bailey Zappi crap. Mac Jones can manage games for the Patriots in a way that I don't think Zappi should be able to. And it's Ramondre Stevens season, baby. Feed the running backs, play good defense, and you're going to win games. But, yeah, I expect Patriots and Jets to flip-flop. I think the Jets are back to being the worst in the division. Miami and Buffalo are the class, and the Patriots should be like 500 by season's end.
Speaking of running the ball and playing good defense, Taysom Hill vulture touchdowns, Brandon Cooks 1,000-yard seasons, and Derrick Henry annihilating the Houston Texans.
You
For
know,
the fourth. Go for it.
So Derrick Henry has 6 games in his career of 200-plus rushing yards and 2 scores, minimum. That's twice as much as the next guy in NFL history.
4 of them are against the Texans.
Death taxes and Derrick Henry obliterating the city of Houston. Yeah, my Derrick Henry hate is done. I was really scared coming into the season. I'm like, damn, he has so many miles on his body. But he might just be a Toyota. And a Toyota-thon is back on, my friends, because Derrick Henry does not care. He said, give me my transmission service, change the oil, we're going back at it. And man, if you started Malik Willis in fantasy, shouldn't have done it.
32 carries, 219 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Malik Willis didn't have to play.
You could have started at quarterback.
I could have led the Tennessee Titans to a win, and I would have retired with a winning percentage of 1,000. I would have been better than Cooper Rush. Malik Willis didn't have to do a damn thing. He threw a pick, but he threw the ball 10 times. There was never any need. They won time of possession by almost 10 minutes. They were only 4 for 12 on third down, and they were 1 for 1 on third down. But it didn't matter. They ran 7 more plays. They only had 35 yards in penalties. Derrick Henry just showed up like he does every time against the Texans. There's nothing really to say here. The Texans are bad. A lot of people have them taking a defensive guy, number 1 overall, which I still disagree with. I just don't like Davis Mills. But there's just so many holes with this team that any pick at 1, as long as it works out, feels fine.
Yeah.
So
it's tough. Derrick Henry against the Texans is that meme video of like Big Bird kicking in that door. And it's just you can't stop him. You can't stop him. There's nothing you can do about it.
And I'm gonna switch these. I'm gonna switch 2 games because this will work perfectly. You have the Titans now, kind of taking over, and then you have the Colts dropping games like these. Like the NFC South AFC South, is fucking awful. It's terrible. Both South divisions are awful. But the Titans are going to cruise their way because the Commanders beat the Colts yesterday. Taylor Heineke does it again. And I'm going to keep saying it every single week. Taylor Heineke can break the all-time record for yards in a game and touchdowns in a singular game. He's not the starting quarterback of the Washington Commanders. He's just not. He threw for 279 yards, a touchdown and a pick, and a big drive to get them over the top. A big throw to Terry McLaurin, who he loves to throw to. But Taylor Heineke just isn't the guy. This win happened because the Colts suck. Because the Colts have no identity. Because the Colts benched Matt Ryan. Because the Colts can't hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor. Because their O-line is awful. And they gave it up when it mattered the most. That's why the Commanders won. Not because of Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke led a game-winning drive. That's great and all. But the Colts suck. This game says more to me about the Colts than it does the Commanders. I am sick and tired of this Colts crap. I'm tired of it.
I disagree to a certain extent. The Colts are terrible. The Colts are criminally bad. This is the worst the Colts have been in the last. This is the worst Colts team we've seen since Peyton Manning had spinal fusion surgery and missed the entire season. That's how bad this Colts team is. Matt Ryan was never the answer. Asking a guy that's going to be 40 years old in a couple of years to throw the ball 50 times a game just doesn't work. But obviously Taylor Heineke is not a set it and forget it starter in the NFL. Taylor Heineke plays well, and this team plays for him in ways that I don't think they played for Carson Wentz. Heineke hasn't won these games, quote unquote, but he's sure as shit helped. And guys are stepping up. Antonio Gibson probably had his best game of the year, 7 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown to pair that with 7 carries, 19 yards.
100%.
Gibson and McLaurin showed up, and those are 2 guys that this team has constantly needed to be factors. Obviously, Curtis Samuel and Brian Robinson Jr. have been nice to have on the team, but the identity over the last 3 years has been the semblance of the defense they once had. But the Commanders are now 4-4. Back-to-back wins beating Green Bay and Indianapolis. Green Bay is a better team than Indianapolis. And I think Green Bay is a better team than Washington. So I think, yes, the Colts let this one go for sure. At the same time, I'm giving the Commanders credit because the one thing about this NFC East resurgence was like, yeah, the Commanders are ass. But now this division is just good all around. They're still ass, but in a different way. Like the Commanders bad is far better than the Colts bad. The Commanders are young. The Commanders don't have $30 million wrapped up in Matt Ryan. The Commanders have a way out. The Commanders can get a higher draft pick and take a quarterback or something, whatever it may be. The Commanders are set to kind of build upon what they're doing right now. The Colts are set to blow the whole thing up. I don't know if Frank Reich's going to be the coach by season's end. I don't think there's any chance of them making the playoffs. Ellinger is a cool pivot to see what you have, because if you have a high enough draft pick, which I don't think they're going to, I don't know what draft picks they owe to Philadelphia in the Wentz trade. That happened last year.
The Colts still have their first round pick, and right now at this current moment, they're number 15.
They're going to have to either hope that it just breaks. Effectively, they're right now that they are the Titanic. And what they need to happen is the boat has to split. If the boat just goes down as a whole and they have a 500 season, this is the worst possible outcome for the Colts because they have Jonathan Taylor.
The thing is, too, you look at the top teams. I say top teams, but I mean the bottom teams who have high draft picks. You know, you got Detroit, Houston, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Houston again because Cleveland's there, Tampa, Philly, Seattle. I could go on, but
yeah,
3 quarterbacks could be gone like that.
Yep.
And at that point, if you don't believe in Sam Ehlinger, who's next? Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, like who you can't keep up this carousel. It's not working. Phillip Rivers was your best shot, and like maybe I was too hard on Carson Wentz last year, but he had extremely poorly timed interceptions, and that's what cost him the games. And now Matt Ryan is so bad you benched him for Sam Ehlinger, so you've already admitted you made a colossal mistake in that. Like there's no light at the end of this tunnel because I don't know where this tunnel leads. I have no idea what's happening. This is pathetic.
It's an episode of The Twilight Zone. It's the true definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And yeah, the Colts are in NFL purgatory in a way that no other franchise is because they're getting nowhere fast. And by nowhere, I mean they're middling. They aren't bottoming out. They're not winning divisions, and they're not making the playoffs this year. They're just stuck.
Yep. Okay. Giants and Seahawks. I knew the Giants were going to let me down the second I picked them. But the biggest thing out of here is that we knew Daniel Jones is not going to blow anybody away. He had a great game against Jacksonville. But Seattle's defense has really stepped up over these past couple of weeks. Daniel Jones only threw for 176 yards. Saquon Barkley got a touchdown. They got that touchdown off a Tyler Lockett fumble, basically in their own 10. And that was the only touchdown they would score all day for the Giants. I think the 2 biggest turning points here, obviously, easily, is 2 Richie James muffed punts that turned into 14 points for the Seattle Seahawks, and that ends up being, the deficit you lose by. I think they still looked good in the second half. They continued to make good first adjustments, even though they gave up 14 in the fourth. It is off those muff punts, I believe. At least one of them is off the muff punts, and it's tough to ask your defense to get right back out there when they just made a stop and get right back out there in the red zone and stop Ken Walker and stop DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. The Giants at 6-2 are overperforming than we have ever thought. Brian Dable is going to get people fired. And like we talked about with Devine earlier, that Pete Carroll, it maybe isn't as crazy as he thought he was, but Geno Smith is also having a really good time. I don't know really going forward what this Seattle team looks like. They have a good offensive core, but it just feels like one of those things that at some point Geno Smith is going to prove us all right. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. Geno's bet on himself for I think this is not Teddy Bridgewater. I think Geno Smith is a guy that has understood his place in the league for a long time. He got his shot with the New York Jets, but the New York Jets were a crapshoot in the time that he was a New York Jet. It was the post Rex Ryan era. if I'm correct. I don't know if Adam Gase was the coach there whenever he played, but he didn't have the necessary tools around him to be a prosperous NFL quarterback. And Geno plays within himself in a way that I think is refreshing for the Seattle attack. Seattle doesn't need Aaron Rodgers. Seattle's never needed the quarterback that's going to throw the ball 50 times and score 5 touchdowns. This is a team historically that is predicated off of their defenses and off of a great rushing attack. Even Russell Wilson's Super Bowl run, it was a stellar defense and one of the top 10 backs in the league, carrying a team to the precipice, and then Russ obviously was a signal caller. I think Geno is going to get an extension this offseason from the Seahawks that probably looks like 2 to 3 years. Because if there's a bridge quarterback in the league that I'm cool with over the next 3 years, it's Geno Smith. So give me Geno. I can
understand that.
And I don't think they're going to be bad enough this year to even think about drafting a quarterback in that first round. So I would say
I don't think so either.
Sign Geno to a 2-year deal. If you capsize, and you can get the next guy in and maybe even have him sit a year so you can get a better piece in that next year's draft. It's best case scenario. They get a playoff run. They have the Broncos pick regardless of – they have 2 first-rounders regardless. This is a rebuild that has jump-started immensely, especially after the Jamal Adams trade. That's really stripped them for parts.
Yeah, and right now they have the 10th pick overall with Denver at 3 and 5, and then they have 22, so they could still get a top 10 pick if I know Denver won this week, but if they continue to play poorly against good teams, Denver could easily hand them a top 10 pick.
Yep.
The curse continues. It's literally never going to end in the regular season. The 49ers once again get through the Rams very easily. It looked a little interesting early as the Rams, I believe, went up 14-0 or even 14-3. But then it was just all Niners in the second half. 21 points overall. Jimmy Garoppolo, 235 for 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, 34 yards and a touchdown. He hit the best hat trick, in my opinion, a passing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown. I'm pretty sure he read my tweet about holding Carolina back and took that to heart. So Christian, if you're watching, I'm sorry.
He's the first player since LaDainian Tomlinson to accomplish the feat in an NFL game.
I thought that is rarefied. When they said that.
That is rarefied air. McCaffrey had a day of all days. The Rams are down bad. Even then, they're 1 game behind the Niners, 2 games behind the Seahawks. This division is far from over, and I expect a lot of ugly football in divisional games moving forward. But the Niners did something in this Christian McCaffrey trade that they needed to do, and it's something that the Rams are going to have to do soon because tomorrow's the deadline. And personally, a championship ascending team cannot have Ronnie Rivers being the leading rusher in their offense. So Kareem Hunt, welcome to Los Angeles, or whoever's getting shipped, because the Rams need a running back that's going to be able to give them a consistent 15, 20 carries, 80 to 100 yards, because Stafford's not the same. And if you don't give him some form of a 1-2, it's going to be really ugly.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it earlier, but the Ravens did trade for Roquan Smith, so I think that's really huge for them moving forward if they want to take this division. Right now,
it's great for them this year. I don't know if I love the move down the road. They're going to have to pay him a lot of money in the same offseason. They're going to have to pay Lamar Jackson. This is probably just a rental to try and exercise whatever they're going to get out of this season, unless they want to bring him back and Lamar. But
we'll for anybody watching, we'll have some shorts throughout the week if there's some big trades. I know Brandon Cooks might get traded, DJ Moore, Kareem Hunt. Alvin Kamara. There's a lot of big names going around, but the NFL trade deadline is always super underwhelming. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. It's one of the most underwhelming in all the sport, if I'm honest. They have one of the best off seasons, but in terms of trade deadline, middle of the season, just not a whole lot happens. McCaffrey is probably the biggest trade in a long ass time that I can remember.
Yeah, in season, it just doesn't happen. There's so much you have to learn in the middle of the season. I think McCaffrey, they made the move because they had the bye week the next week. Or the bye week the second week after. And running back's a little bit easier to code into your offense just because it's a lot of handoffs.
Yeah. All right, last game. The Bills put it up on the Packers once again. They tried to do a whole lot more, but Josh Allen got picked off a couple times. He only threw for 218 and 2 touchdowns. And Singletary, 14 carries for 67 yards. Kind of another team who could use a running back. I like Devin Singletary to an extent. But I mean, if you can go out and get a Kareem Hunt, fucking go for it. I think that would be great for this Bills team because they're already going to air it out a shit ton. I think Kareem Hunt is a good receiving back for sure. I think Devin Singletary is a decent receiving back, but it's blatantly obvious that even when he was having good carries against the Packers, getting 8-10 yards on some of his carries, that they're just not trustworthy of him. They just don't believe in him to give him. He's not a workhorse back. He's never going to be, especially in the Bills offense. Meanwhile, on the other side, you got the Packers who are down 3 scores, running the ball 10,000 times because that was the only thing they could go. Aaron Jones got 20 carries for 143 yards. A.J. Dillon. They finally didn't abandon the run, and yet they were abandoning the run in close games, and now they just want to run the ball when they're down by 3 scores. So solid strategy there by Matt LaFleur. The Packers are 3-5. They're in super uncharted territory, and the sky is falling. You've had 20 years of Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and now your time is up.
Yeah, it's a tough loss for the Packers. It sucks whenever Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb aren't playing. They lost Christian Watson during this game. The game should have been closer. It should have been a 3-point loss. The offensive pass interference in Robert Tonyan was laughable, to say the least.
Yeah.
Or it should have been like ridiculous. A 5-point game. Yeah, that was just you got to swallow that flag. Green Bay played well. The Bills played one of the worst games they've played all year, in my opinion. They didn't really look too sharp. Allen with 2 picks wasn't ideal, but that's how good this Bills team is, especially defensively. They were able to get to Aaron Rodgers consistently, and Josh Allen is just a step above a lot of quarterbacks at this point, and the Bills are just on that higher plane of the NFL's top contenders. It's KC, the Eagles, and the Bills than everybody else.
Yeah.
So, congrats to the Bills, 6-1. It's nothing to shake a stick at. They're looking really good.
Who did they even lose to? They lost to Miami. That's it.
Yeah, they lost to Miami
in the Tua back concussion
the
game.
Tua stumbles, Tua wins game. Yeah.
I really don't know where the Packers go from here. They could trade for a wide receiver. I don't know if it's going to matter. It'd be nice. I think it'll be decent for them, but I really just don't. This is the end.
Yep.
It really is, because Aaron Rodgers, his time is just about up. You have 2 great running backs, but outside of that, you're kind of laughable everywhere else. I mean, your defense is not too bad. Jair Alexander, one of the best corners in the game, but there's just not a whole lot looking forward. And right now, what pick do they have? They have the 13th overall pick. We already know it's not going to be a wide receiver. So you can scratch that off. So they probably go defensive player, I would assume, in the next draft, because Jordan Love is a whole nother story, isn't it? You could go on like you don't know what you have there. It's gonna. I think it's going to be a tough road for Packer fans moving forward. They'll win multiple games moving forward still this season, but they could be on the outside looking in. If the Giants and Cowboys continue their success, that locks up 2 wild cards right there. And then you got the West, who should easily break out of their slump. I don't know about the Rams, but the Niners will most likely, and the Seahawks keep playing. Then the wild card get a little tight. Nobody's coming out of the South. We already know that.
Nope.
But you're just as bad as the Bears are. You're 3-5. So,
yeah.
All right. We went 10-4 pending this game. I believe the Browns are up 11-0 going into halftime. So we'll see how that goes for the Bengals. Kind of looking a little lost without Chase, but obviously I haven't been watching the full game. So let's get to it. Eagles. The Eagles. The Eagles are beating the Texans on Thursday.
Yep, the Eagles are going to win this game. I got the Patriots in the next matchup against the Colts. I'm not betting on the Colts until something just happens, and then they're a different team. So probably not until
like check against rookie quarterbacks.
Yep, not betting against that. Give me the Colts. Give me the Patriots against the Colts. Packers, Lions. I don't like the Packers inherently in this matchup, but I also do not like the Lions defense. Give me the Packers. But I would not be surprised if this is like a game that's won by a field goal.
Man. I'm going to go the Packers too. I really want to go the Lions, but the Lions defense just does nothing for me. And if Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are going to have those decent of a games against the Bills defense, they should be able to do whatever the hell they want against the Lions defense. I think the Lions defense can go pound for pound, or the Lions offense can go pound for pound with the Packers offense. I think they can shoot out, but in the end, I have to pick the Packers because the Lions just show they can't stop the bleeding at any point. And they just give up just enough to lose every time.
Yeah. Then we got Chargers, Falcons. Don't even ask me this question. I'm going with the Chargers.
You are facing the division leaders.
Yeah, I'm going Chargers. The Falcons could pull some bullshit, and I could fucking come over here next weekend crying. But they have to win this game. It's been a season from hell, and if you're going through hell, you got to keep moving. So the Chargers have to win this game. This is one of the ones that will cost us a playoff spot if we drop it.
100%. You got to just. I know the run defense has not been good, but you have a bye week.
It's Tyler Algier.
It's Tyler. Well, I was going to say more Marcus Mariota than anything. I don't know if Cordero Patterson is back. It's close.
If Patterson's back, I'm scared.
That'd be wild. But I mean, they won't throw the ball if they're down. So just get up early and you'll be fine. I'm going the Chargers too. I'm taking the Bills over the Jets.
Yep, 100%. I think Zach Wilson is in a bad spot. I think Zach Wilson's going to be in danger this game. I think Von Miller might brand his number on the back of Zach Wilson's jersey, how many times he's going to hit him.
Seriously.
Sauce Gardner against Stephon Diggs, though. I'm excited to see that.
It'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a lot of fun. I think
that's the one matchup I'm looking forward to.
And I think the pass rush is going to be good, but the problem is Josh Allen is so mobile and hard to take down that I think he'll just have a field day in terms of rushing yards too.
Yeah.
You got the Vikings and the Commanders.
Yeah, give me the Vikings.
Yeah, give me the Vikings 100%. They're the overall better team. The Commanders are, they've played well against the Packers and the Colts, but God, do we hate both those teams. I mean, it'd be so Minnesota to drop this game out of all games they've played so far. But yeah, we'll take the Vikings 100%. We're taking the Bengals over the Panthers, I think, regardless of this outcome on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bengals. Carolina sucks, and they don't know what the rules are. And PJ Walker isn't a starter, but neither is anybody else on that roster at quarterback. Bengals have one more week without Jamar Chase. They're gonna be better. They're gonna be able to game plan better. T. Higgins is going to have the breakout game at some point. Joe Mixon has been atrocious efficiency wise, but it's the Panthers.
Yeah,
give me the Bengals. Next game,
Raiders and the Jaguars.
I'm picking the Raiders out of pure spite. Jacksonville is good, but they're also bad, and the Raiders are bad, but also good. Best day, the Raiders are a better team than the Jags under current construction.
Yeah.
On their worst day, the Jaguars are a better team than the Raiders during current construction. I'm an optimist. I'm going to pick the Raiders. I don't really want to pick the Jaguars. I don't know who stops Devontae Adams. Josh Jacobs is a monster right now.
Who stops Travis Etienne?
Chandler Jones is getting paid a lot of money. Maybe he starts earning it this week. I don't know, man.
Okay, hang on. I just want to see Chandler Jones's stats this week.
He has half a sack.
Oh my God.
Half a sack for the season.
Oh, Lordy. He had one tackle against the Saints. No assists, no sacks, no nothing. He's
in his bag. He's in his bag regardless.
He got his bag.
Yeah, give me the Raiders.
Doing dope with his brother, I guess. I don't fucking know.
Goddamn.
I'm picking the Raiders. I really want to pick the Jaguars, but I think it's criminal to make them play after their London game. I think that I get it. They're highly paid, but the Broncos are getting a bye and the Jaguars are not. I think that's a little criminal. I think it's a little ridiculous.
Well, Russell did do high knees the entire flight to and from. So, they don't want him pulling another hamstring.
Well, I mean, Trevor Lawrence was probably brushing his hair, so
1,000
every,
strokes a day, man. You
that
gotta be sure.
everyone has their thing. Um, the
Bears,
Dolphins and the
Dolphins.
Bears, Dolphins.
This battle is taking place in the water. I don't know how to break it to Bears fans. Bears are cool in the water. Dolphins are faster. This Dolphins freaking passing attack is just terrifying. Roquan Smith just got traded. They just lost Robert Quinn.
Yeah,
Miami by two scores. Like Dallas just put up 49 points, and I think Miami's offense is a bit more efficient. So give me Miami.
Can't wait for Tyreek Hill to carry me this week. The Seahawks and the Cardinals.
Oh, dude, I'm picking the Cardinals just because I love watching Cliff Kingsbury keep his job as much as I hate him. And they're the in-season Hard Knocks team. I can't watch this team hate themselves for the entirety of the show. I want one Kyler Murray victory dance. Like I need it. I need it bad. I'm picking the Cardinals. The Seahawks didn't look groundbreaking against the Giants, and it's a divisional game. Divisional games are weird, and I don't expect Kyler to play as bad as he did this week, because that Seahawks defense is not good. It's not.
Yeah, he played terrible against the Seahawks, but it came out strong against Minnesota. I think D-Hop makes a huge difference for sure. It's not even close. I think he'll continue to pepper D-Hop, and I think that'll take him. I think it'll be a fun game to watch. Rams, Buccaneers. You want to talk about two teams that need this win badly? Because I didn't really say it in the Rams, but the Rams are getting their heads kicked in losses, and most of their wins are not very good.
I'm picking the Rams.
Ooh,
I'm picking the Rams. Okay. It's going to age like milk, I'm sure. Cooper Kupp plays, the Rams win. Cooper Kupp misses, the Bucs win. Cooper Kupp is dealing with an ankle sprain. He's day-to-day. But Aaron Donald is still Aaron Donald. Jalen Ramsey is still Jalen Ramsey. And I'm assuming they're going to have a running back on roster come Sunday. That should be an upgrade over whoever the hell's been behind center.
True.
The Bucs are banged up. The Bucs are in disarray. Brady looks worse every single week. And their running game is terrible, and I don't expect running straight into Aaron Donald is going to help that. It's going to be a terrible game. It's probably my least favorite game of the week, but somebody has to win. And I do think the NFC West is a better setup than the NFC South.
I'm going to pick the Bucs because I think simply, and this is not even due to like me trying to catch up in record, but in their losses, I think the Bucs have looked better than the Rams. I'm concerned for the Rams. I know Cooper Kupp is going to play despite his ankle injury, but if somehow that worsens, if somehow they don't trade for a running back come tomorrow, I've been concerned for Stafford all year long, and it's proven me right. The Rams just don't blow me away in anything they do. They barely beat a backup quarterback in Carolina. Granted, PJ Walker has looked a lot better since that game, but it's just their wins have not looked good. Their losses have looked god awful. And at least the Bucs have shown life in most of their games. So that's basically the only reason I'm taking the Bucs. I mean, neither team can afford to lose this game at all. They are so far behind if they lose this week. But somebody has to win. Somebody's got to lose.
It feels like a loser leaves town type of matchup, and I just think the Rams need this win way more than the Bucs do, because yes, the Buccaneers are second in their division currently, but the division leader is Atlanta. The Bucs can make up for whatever deficit they're going to have in the next 3 weeks. The Rams have to keep pace with this resurgent Seattle team and the newly reborn San Francisco 49ers. The Rams need to win more, and I think I don't know. I feel like the Rams are holding on to more of the candle that they have for a championship window than the Bucs do. I think the Bucs are just kind of on this downhill slope. They're not going to be terrible like moving forward, but the Rams window is right now. They cannot roll over and lose this game. If there's a must-win game on their schedule, it's this one. Because if they lose this game, the road to a playoff spot is almost insurmountable.
Shit, and they move into the top 10, and Detroit could have 2 top 10 picks if the Rams continue to be this bad. That'd be insane. Exactly. There's a lot of bad teams that could be set up really well if their contemporaries set them up perfectly. Yep. I still can't believe the Eagles have the first round pick of the Saints. That blows my fucking mind. It scares me to death as a Cowboys fan.
Yes, not checkers.
Titans and Chiefs.
Chiefs 1,000%. Derrick Henry could carry the ball 50 times for 500 yards. I'm picking the Chiefs.
I could see a world where Derrick Henry wins this game because the Chiefs' run defense has been so bad, but I just can't. It's off the bye week. They're going to be so much faster. They're Kadarius Toney. I don't know if he's going to make a huge breakout this week, but I think it's still something added in there that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see him actually play a game healthy. But yeah, I have to take the Chiefs here. The Titans can look good, and they did beat the Chiefs last season. And Derrick Henry can tear up this defense for sure, but I just don't see a world where it's going to be enough because Mahomes and the Chiefs can just score so fast. Like the Titans can take 10 minutes off the clock and get Henry in the end zone, and then 3 seconds later, it's a tie game. It's just that easy. And then Monday night is the Ravens and the Saints.
Ravens, give me the Ravens. I don't like what Dennis Allen does with this offense. It takes Alvin Kamara being next level for them to really compete in games, or Taysom Hill just fucking saying whatever, I'll do it myself. Andy Dalton's been fun to watch. The defense has been disappointing besides the Raiders game. The Ravens are looking to make an impact in their own division in a way that the Saints really can't this year. So yeah, give me the Ravens. This game means more to them. They just got Roquan Smith. I think they could make another move to get a perimeter type star or a perimeter type player receiver. They could use one, obviously, but yeah, Andrews should play. Hopefully, Bateman hopefully can come back. Even without
I think
them,
Bateman's out for a couple of weeks.
Well, hopefully Andrews is back. Duvernay's been good in his stead, and then Likely is also a weapon. The Ravens just seem to have them.
Yeah, Likely will be really interesting to see. Him implemented more, maybe a lot of 2 tight end sets with Bateman out. But yeah, give me the Ravens too. The Saints played a great game against a bad team, but I think the Ravens, especially with Roquan Smith now, will be interesting to see moving forward. But I think they're a better team overall because of that trade now. I don't know. I'm probably not putting them in Super Bowl contender right now because the Titans or the Chiefs and the Bills exist in their conference, but they're still a good team moving forward. I think they're a better team than a lot of others.
The Ravens are definitely like tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah. Okay, as my voice continues to dip out, we will also dip out. We need 2 more points from Amari Cooper so I can sleep well tonight. And that's it. That's all I need.
Yep. Well,
we
appreciate everybody for tuning in. Divine, thank you for keeping us honest. Go Birds, for lack of better terms. Geno Smith, he's your favorite quarterback. But that's it. That's a wrap on NFL Week 8. We look forward to Week 9. Happy Halloween to everybody tuning in. Stay safe. Check your candy. Don't bite down on a razor blade. I hate when that happens. But, have the happiest of Halloweens, and may your treats be sweet and your tricks not so bountiful. But if you got nothing left, Austin, it's time for the final word. Peace.